Hello everyone. This might be my shortest video, I think. I don't know. I'm recording it right now because we're going to be talking about Midnight Motorist and how I still believe it's about the Aftons, unlike a lot of the theories that I've seen come out recently about Midnight Motorist. So we're going to start with the security puppet minigame in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Now, in the minigame, you play as a security puppet, and you don't really do much until the third time you try it, where you see the puppet go outside after the only kid with a green wristband, who is only to be assumed to be Charlie Emily, which this exact situation we see in Fnaf 2 during the Take Cake to the Children minigame. Now, I believe that the evidence that we've already theorized about still holds true, that this ties to Midnight Motorist in some way. And actually, three ways. So, first way it ties to it is when you get to the part where the puppet is crawling to Charlie. Once you get to Charlie's dead body, if you brighten it up, you actually see tire tracks driving away. Just like in the Take Cake to the Children minigame. You'd see William driving away after doing what he did. Now, another way is that in the files, the Midnight Motorist minigame is labeled as later that night, which would imply that something happened before the Midnight Motorist minigame when you're driving away. So this could be two things he's driving away from, because I already am going to assume you know who I'm talking about, but we'll get into it. But something that gives more evidence to the first thing that I'm going to imply here is that the car that we see during the secret part of Midnight Motorist, once you activate the secret, is the exact same as the Take Cake to the Children minigame. So, with these pieces in mind, I feel like we could put together that Midnight Motorist is showing us what happens after Charlie's death and how William really isn't in a good state of mind when he gets home. So it could be showing us that he did it under the influence, as some have theorized, or just blind rage. But another thing that could be showing us, and this one I don't really believe myself, but it's something that could be shown, is that this takes place after the MCI, the Missing Children's Incident. Because with the later that night, like, in the files, it feels like something important happens before, during a night. And we know from the FNAF 1 newspaper clipping that the Missing Children's Incident happens at night on June 26th. Now, we don't know what year, so this could be taking place any year. And yeah, but I feel like that one kind of has less evidence to it than Charlie's death. So why would they have too many games though about Charlie's death? That is a question I asked myself when writing this script, and I think I figured it out. It's probably to show that Charlie's death wasn't really supposed to happen. It was just under blind rage or influence, showing like William's mentality that night and how he was just rageful, either via influence or just blind rage. But I feel like this part is going to be a stretch, but it kind of shows after when he gets home and he's ragefully trying to get his child out of his room, which I'll get into who the child is in a moment. But it kind of shows, and this might be a stretch, he might be just mad at himself for what he just did and is right now just in the rageful mood or under the influence. He's willing to try and take it out on whoever's in that room. Now, I do want to talk about something before we get into who the child is, because this also helps who I believe the child is, to be honest. It's about the person in the house sitting on the couch or the chair in front of the TV. Now, people have theorized about it like multiple times. This might be Mrs. Afton, this might be Michael, all that. And I believe it's Michael, to be honest. The evidence for it being Michael Afton just makes more sense because the only person we've seen in a similar setup to what we see in the Midnight Motors minigame is Michael, just sitting in front of a TV, like he does in Sister Location. But then, if it's Michael on the chair, then who's the kid in the room when this can only happen after 1983, aka the bite of 83? In my personal opinion, this can only happen after the bite of 83. Charlie's death happens after he suffers from the bite of 83. I believe that in the story, the real Jake, we actually see what happened to the crying child after the bite of 83. I feel like Jake and the crying child have a connection together where both Jake and the crying child are hospitalized in bed at their homes instead of, being in a hospital, and also they die in their bedrooms instead of a hospital. Now, the evidence I have for this is actually in my theory I want to make about the connection between Golden Freddy and the Stitch Wraith, because I feel like they're really closely connected. But for now, the biggest connection I can give you is that Jake and the crying child in the Midnight Motors minigame both exit like their homes to try and get away from their homes for the first time via the window. Now, that isn't really like substantial evidence, but I feel like that is a good connection. Might not be. I can't really think of any counters right now to that, but it's a good connection. But biggest question of Midnight Motorists is, what is Junior's? What is Junior's supposed to be, and why is William not allowed inside? Now, this theory is about to make so many stretches while also having evidence, so I'm not going to start every sentence that I think is a stretch by saying this might be a stretch. This is the warning that this is going to go off the rails real quick. But the two biggest theories that people have come up with for what Junior's is that it's a Fazbear's establishment or a bar. Now, from the evidence given between these two theories, I can only say that this has to be a Fazbear's establishment because of one detail from the minigame right at the end, which is the animatronic footprints outside of the home. So, which animatronic is it? Which animatronic could it be? Which would prove what year this is? which would prove where this is, all that. Now, the thing I have to answer before that, because I don't feel like a lot of people bring this up, is why doesn't William question the footprints on the ground when he sees them? Now, the answer might be he's under the influence, he might be thinking he sees things, or he just doesn't care, he's just angry as a child, he didn't see them, he's looking off into the distance where his child could be. But I feel like to answer both which animatronic this could be and why William doesn't question it is I believe that William leaves an animatronic outside the crying child's room to keep the crying child from leaving. And the only reason that we don't see it there during the mini game is because it's raining outside. It would damage the animatronic. Now, frankly, that is a stretch. But with the unfazed reaction of William and the other fact that the footsteps of the animatronic do not follow the child's footsteps at all. The kid goes off, but the animatronic seemingly stays there, which some have theorized it might be Golden Freddy teleporting, not moving, all that. But that wouldn't really make much sense at this point in time because the MCI hasn't happened yet. So I believe that William knows why the animatronic was there because he put it there. And this also connects to why he's not allowed in juniors, a Fazbear's establishment, because he may have got caught taking the animatronic, or the place is on lockdown because an animatronic is missing. Like we hear in, what was it? Fnaf 3 in those tapes when they sealed off the back rooms because an animatronic was used and they saw it used. They seemingly like to shut something off or close down the buildings, maybe, when an animatronic seemingly is missing or used in an improper way. So it makes sense that no one's allowed into the building, or specifically William's no longer allowed in the building because he took an animatronic and either A, got caught, or B, got away with it scot-free with no one knowing, but they know the animatronic's missing. So now time to answer, which animatronic is it? I believe that Junior's, the establishment, is supposed to be the 1985 location before the MCI happens. And the two animatronics that could be there from the old location of FNAF 4 in 1983 is Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, because we know Spring Bonnie continues to roam around these Freddy's locations. So Fredbear might also be there. And so I believe it's Fredbear to make sure the crying child doesn't leave his room, because I don't believe that the bite bit off his frontal lobe. As we see, he's just bleeding when he gets bit down. It might have crushed his skull, in, but he was able to live, because people are able to live from getting their skull crushed. Like that. I believe his frontal lobe wasn't bitten off, but he was just extremely injured and hospitalized at home. So the thing about this is, this actually explains something that I haven't seen really anyone talk about. The FNAF 4's main menu screen This shows in the main menu screen, it shows a house off in the distance that looks an awful lot like the house we see in Midnight Motorist, with animatronics in the forest looking towards the house. Now, the thing about this is, if William is placing animatronics outside the house to keep the crying child in the house, then the kid would fantasize, or in his nightmares, or, dream up that animatronics are always outside his house in the woods, waiting to jump in and get him, just like we see in FNAF 4's Nights. Now, William did this for a reason, to keep his child safe. But thing about it is that with the trauma that he has endured, the bite, and possibly, I won't confirm this or deny this, but possibly losing his daughter already, because we don't see any indication of any other people in the home besides from Michael, the crying child, and William at this point in time. I feel like that's the reason why he inflicts the pain onto Henry via murdering Charlie in either a drunken or blind rage. But that's another theory from me. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.